Hey everybody, I'm going to do a short video today. Hopefully it's a short video. I want to talk to you about if you were to start a homestead, what livestock would be your first choice to start? And I have two specifically that I would recommend based on my experiences so far. Um, I've raised animals for a really long time, and it's just been recently over the last year that we have really ramped up and kind of purposefully raised animals for pretty significant use. But I'm going to show you two animals that you can actually raise in these small spaces that reproduce fast, produce multiple products for you, and are really just an overall easy animal to start with as a livestock option. So the first one I want to talk about is Coturnix quail. So I've raised them for a little over a year now, and I'm going to say for a livestock bird, they are by far my favorite. I would raise quail over chickens any day. I know some people look at them as not a traditional animal, so they might be, a little turned off to eating them or eating their eggs just because they're different. They're not commonly sold in a store, but that's just a mental block. Meat-wise, they're delicious, and egg-wise, they're delicious. Now, why I recommend quail, you can raise a lot of quail in small spaces. So it's recommended you can do anywhere from 1 to 3 quail per square foot, which that's a lot of birds. You can never have chickens in that small of a space. So you can raise a lot of birds in a small space. They're very quiet. They do, make small chirps and peeps, and the males do crow, but they are not on the same scale as a chicken or a rooster. So when I raise my quail in my garage, and when I'm outside and they're crowing, I'm not hearing them. My roosters, on the other hand, I can hear them about 50 yards away from my house when I'm inside. So they're again, they're not anywhere near the volume of a chicken or a rooster. The next thing I want to talk about is their grow out. So quail chicks hatch in about 16 to 18 days. So just a little over 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, almost 3. And that's a very short amount of time. That's almost half the time as incubating a chicken egg. So incubation time is cut in half. Quail mature in about 8 weeks. So in 2 months from hatching, your quail are going to start laying eggs. Whereas, your chickens, you're going to be around 5 to 6 months before your chickens are even laying you eggs. So you've been feeding those chickens, you've had room for those chickens, you've been listening to those chickens for 6 months, and they're just now starting to give you something. Now, the drawback, I guess, with quail, it takes about 4 quail eggs to equal the size of 1 chicken egg. But again, they're maturing much faster. They're not consuming as much feed as long as you have good feeders that they're not spilling things. And you can have way more quail in a smaller space. So that comparison of 4 quail eggs to 1 chicken egg, it's kind of null and void, really. Nutrition-wise, quail eggs, if you look it up, they're actually considered a superfood because of their nutrition level. So a quail egg is actually more nutritious than 1 chicken egg. And then the only drawback, I guess, with the quail eggs is protein-wise, they don't supersede a chicken egg. So protein-wise, you're about the same, as you would be with a chicken egg, but you're getting more vitamins and minerals and folate out of the quail eggs. Feed-wise, they eat pretty much the same food as a chicken. Now, when they're little, you do have to, we feed 30% protein like a wild game bird mix. They do require a higher protein level as a chick, but whenever they are an adult, I have switched them over to, I use a soy-free feed because I actually had some egg intolerance. And when we switched over to a soy-free feed, the egg intolerance went away. It's kind of that egg ick in your stomach that you get. You just some people don't tolerate eggs well. But again, moving to that soy-free feed, that has ridded us of any problems. So now I feed them a 17% layer soy-free feed mix. So I feed my chickens the same thing, so they're all basically eating the same thing. But I'm going to show you my quail cage, show you what it looks like, and show you just what kind of a small space you can keep it in. Okay, so here's my quail cage. It's a hatching time quail cage, and it's 3 stories high, and I do have my birds separated by color. I've got my white ones on top and my pharaohs in the middle, and I have some tuxedos and some rosettes and Italians down below. But this cage is about 4.5 feet tall, and it's about 35 inches wide. So it's not very big, and it's on wheels. Now there is some poop that they can shoot out the side, and I actually discussed that in an earlier video when I reviewed this cage. But you can actually remedy that by putting a rubber tray or a rubber mat underneath it, and then it's not a big deal. But the great thing about this cage, and like I said, there are 20 quail in this cage currently. You can see there's no food mess on the bottom. These feeders actually work really great. They don't make a mess like some of the other feeders do. They can't fling the food around, so that helps keep things clean. But this cage can fit in your garage. It could fit in your house. It could be in your basement, a porch, a sunroom, a deck, anything. So you can keep quail in your house. I know many people who keep them in their house, keep them in their basement. But then you always have fresh eggs, and you always have a meat source. So you can see an egg there, and then there's one down there. Currently, I'm getting about 15 eggs a day right now, and we are in winter. I do keep lights on them to keep them laying. You have to have about 13, 14 hours of light a day on these birds to keep them laying, which is no big deal. I just have a light on a timer that hangs over them, and they've laid perfectly all winter long for me. And again, in 8 weeks, you get eggs. The other thing you can do is you can raise many, many birds. And again, you can raise them in these small spaces. And then every 8 weeks, you can butcher. I use my males. I butcher my males. I keep my hens for laying eggs. But I butcher my males, and then you have a meat source. So they are not huge, but when you can hatch a lot of eggs fast and they grow out in 8 weeks, you can hatch enough birds to make a meal. The limiting factor is how big of a cage you want. So these cages you can keep stacking if you want. You can go up 5 high. The sky's the limit. You can really scale this to however you like. And the more birds you have, the more eggs you have, you can freeze dry eggs and powder them. You can save them. You can preserve them. I know there's ways of preserving eggs in water that you can preserve them up to 6 months long. So you always have a source of meat and eggs. So these are my #1 pick. If you were to start a homestead in a small space, this is the livestock I would recommend first for anybody starting out. The next animal that I would recommend if you were starting your homestead after quail would be meat rabbits. And I know that this is a controversial topic because rabbits are cute. And I get that. They are very cute. Especially when you have litters of rabbits, the little ones are very cute. But rabbits were actually, rabbits were actually one of the first livestock ever used for meat. And that is because it's a lean meat. It's a very healthy meat, and rabbits don't need a lot of space, and they grow really, really fast. So I have New Zealand rabbits, and their gestation period is about 1 month. So every month you can have a litter of rabbits if you want to do a continual breeding. Best thing is, so I started with 3. That was probably my recommendation to start, or at least 1 buck and 1 doe. I wanted a buck and 2 does so I could alternate litters. So again, 1 month, you can have a litter of rabbits. My last litter, we had 7. And then their grow out time is about 15 to 16 weeks to get to that 4.5, 5 pound range. That's not a long time. So 5 months, half a year, if you're rotating every couple months, you could be butchering rabbits. So that's another meat source and another healthy meat source for you. If you're just eating rabbit meat, I would recommend using a lot of oils or butters to cook them in. Especially for me, being on the carnivore diet, I rely on those fats for fuel. So with rabbits, for us, we do have to cook them in a lot of butter or tallow. We use a lot. But they are another livestock option that you can reproduce quick, and you can actually provide a fair amount of meat in a short amount of time. I'm going to take you over to my rabbits real quick and show you them. So this is my doe. She's in a 30 by 36 cage, and she just had my last litter that we had. And she's a very sweet girl, and she's just a breeder. We get her out all the time. We let her run around the garage. She's very friendly with us. She's friendly with our kids. She's actually really friendly with our dogs as well. She's a very sweet rabbit. She is one of 2 does that we have, and then our buck. And then I'm going to show you the litter that we just had. So this is our litter of babies. And these guys now are about 10 weeks old, so they're about 5 weeks away from being fully mature. These are 30 by 36 cages that these rabbits are in. Every rabbit has their own cage except for the grow outs. And you can actually, there's a lot of cage options. You can buy your own cages, you can build your own cages. A lot of the cages that you can buy, you can stack them, so you can stack them vertically. So your footprint is only 30 inches by 36 inches, and then you can go up as high as you want, up to probably what's manageable is maybe 5.5, 6 feet tall, somewhere around in there. But both of these options, quick growing, quick reproducing, quickly maturing, and then also offer you meat and eggs both. Investment can be as minimal as you want to make it. You can make whatever cages you want. You can buy, build, you can invest whatever amount of money you want into it, but the startup cost is very, very low, and the reward is actually really, really big. So these are the 2 animals that I would recommend if you were starting your homestead right now, especially if you were starting it in a small space. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. I hope, maybe it even gave you an idea of something you weren't even thinking about. So I will see you guys next time.